Hi everyone, my name is Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and today I'm coming to you with a recommendations video for Battle of the Girl Bands. Specifically for Team Cheetah Girls, as I am a co-host for Team Cheetah Girls along with Nell and Julie. I will have them both linked down below, as well as our fearless leader, Rainey, who came up with this readathon. We did Battle of the Boy Bands last year. We're doing Battle of the Girl Bands this year. So I went through the prompts for Team Cheetah Girls, and I am going to give you some recommendations for each of the prompts. So there are 3 prompts that are very person specific, so I'm not going to give recommendations for those 3. Those are a cover that screams at you. That's very much whatever screams at you. A book you're considering getting rid of. Again, that would be very dependent on your own bookshelves. And also a author you've never read from before. That would really be dependent on who you are and what you've read. So I'm not going to do recommendations for those, but the rest of the prompts, here we go. We're going to jump in and get some recommendations. So for the first prompt, a book with a cat, I had to really think about this one. What books have I read that contain cats? And I did come up with 3 of them. The first one is a 5-star read from an author that I absolutely love, and it is A Man Called Uwe. This follows an elderly gentleman who is living on his own. He's kind of removed himself from society. His wife has passed away. He is still grieving that. He's still grieving the process of that. And slowly his community comes around him and kind of forces themselves into his life and forces him to make connections with them. And it's funny, but it's also very heartbreaking and very heartwarming, and it gives you all the feels. But one thing that happens is a stray cat, keeps coming to Uwe and kind of coming to his door, looking to kind of insert himself into Uwe's life. This cat picks Uwe, and eventually Uwe brings the cat in, and the cat becomes Uwe's cat. But there is a cat in this book. Be prepared to cry with this one, though. Have some tissues. The City of Ghosts is the first in a trilogy following Cassidy Blake. Cassidy Blake has almost died. She almost drowned. A ghost, Jacob, has pulled her out of the water and saved her life. Now she has the ability to cross between worlds and banish ghosts. She has a cat, and the cat actually does play a big part in the books, fairly, especially in book 2, where the cat wreaks havoc at a hotel. So the cat is definitely a part of this book and is in it. The third book I have is a contemporary romance, The Long Game by Alina Armas. This is a soccer romance between an ex-professional goalie and the daughter of a owner of one of the sports teams. Adeline has had kind of a publicity nightmare. She attacked the mascot of her dad's team. She is actually set to inherit this team and take over for her dad someday, but now this is going all over social media, and he sends her away to coach a girls' soccer team and get out of town, get away so that they can clean up this mess. The coach of the girls' soccer team is an ex-professional athlete, Cameron, and they spark feelings pretty quickly, and a romance does ensue, and they are bonded together by Cameron's 2 cats. The cats don't play a huge role in this, but they do play a little bit of one. They do. It does help them kind of break the ice in this relationship, some things going on with the cats, so they are definitely in here, and they are definitely somewhat part of the plot. Now we're moving on to Animal on the Cover. Same idea in some of the books that I mentioned for the first prompt will also work for this. A lot of them do have animals also on the covers, but I thought I'd give you 3 more that necessarily are not cats and are just other animals. So the first one is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is a book that I talk about quite a lot. It's a cozy mystery following 4 senior citizens who live in an assisted living facility, and they solve murders. Various murders over 4 books, and all 4 books have a fox on the cover. We don't really discover what the fox is about until the 4th book. What does the fox say? But the fox is on the cover of all 4 books, so you could read any book in this series for Animal on the cover. Spy Family Volume 4 has a dog on the cover. This is the first time that we see Twilight get a pet. Twilight is a spy. He is the best spy, and he needs to get near his mark. And the way to do that is to get his daughter into the school that his mark's son goes to. The problem is Twilight does not have a daughter. He adopts Anya, and Anya is my favorite character in these books. Love Anya. Absolutely love her. He adopts her. She is a telepath. He doesn't know this. And then he needs a wife, so he brings in a woman who is an assassin, also doesn't know that. And now they have a dog, and the dog actually has some special abilities too, but since it's book 4, I won't tell you too much about that, but the dog has special abilities. And the only person who knows who everybody is Anya, because she's a telepath. She knows everything that's going on, and she's fabulous. This is a manga series I highly recommend. It's fabulous, and even if you haven't started yet, it would be really easy to get to book 4 and use the other books for various other prompts. Then I decided to go with Desperate Measures, which has a snake on the cover. I figured I'd give you at least one dark romance recommendation. In here, we have a Katie Roberts dark romance, and it is a retelling. It is a Aladdin retelling with Jasmine and Jafar. This is dark. It is a good 75% smut, 25% plot, but it's a fun time, and I love a retelling. We all know I do. Here's a recommendation, and it does have a lovely snake on the cover. Now, for books set in New York, I actually had a harder time with this because I couldn't really remember a lot of books that are set in New York that I've read, but I do have a couple to tell you about. One I've read fairly recently, and that is The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. This book is set in New York and is actually based around the New York Public Library, so it's very much set in New York. Nell is working for a place called Classics where they make fake reproductions of like very expensive maps. But Nell used to work at the New York Public Library under her dad, who is a famous cartographer. She was an apprentice to him, but she did get fired 7 years ago because of an altercation with her father over a box of maps that she found in the basement of the library. She's never really understood why he was so upset over these box of maps, and she has never spoken to him since. It had really put a rift in their relationship. Now, in the present timeline, he has been found dead at his desk, most likely a heart attack. And Nell goes to see him at the library to like identify his body. And when she arrives, she finds one of the maps from this box in his desk. And it's not one of the maps she thought he would keep. It's like a cheap garage station map. And she's like, why did he keep this? She does take it home though and puts it in like a registry of maps. And the next thing you know, the New York Public Library is being burgled. And why do people want these maps? Why are people dying for these maps? There's like a secret society around cartographers. It's dark academia. I had a fabulous time with this. I read it over Sprintmas and would highly recommend. Then we have a nonfiction, Brain on Fire. This is by a New York Times journalist who ended up having a brain disease that no one could figure out what it was and ended up in the hospital. It was 30 days of people trying to figure out what was wrong. They were looking at it as a mental health issue. Was it a parasite? What was going on? Was it cancer? They did not know. And you go through the struggles of them trying to figure out what is wrong with her. She's writing the book, obviously, so she is fine. And there is a Netflix movie based off this book. I found the book very, very intriguing, especially being told by the person who went through this process. And I would recommend, especially if you're looking to maybe add a nonfiction to your list. This is where I really had to stretch. I ended up putting City of Bones on here as a recommendation, which I did enjoy. I gave it 4 stars. I did enjoy this book. I've only read the first trilogy of Cassandra Clare. I haven't continued since because it's just so big. And it's like a cheeseburger book. Does that make sense? It's like not that great, but like it's super fun to have, if that makes any sense. So they're super fun to read, but like they're not fantastic. And I'm just hesitant to like go back into this world because it is so large and I just don't know if I have time. I think I am going to try to read The Infernal Devices, which is the next trilogy question mark on the amount of books that are in The Infernal Devices, because I have heard from most people that that is the best bit of the Shadowhunters world. So this is where you would start if you want to start Shadowhunters, but I'm pretty sure almost all of the books are somewhat set in New York. So wherever you are in the Cassandra Clare universe, I think part of it is set in New York. Don't quote me on that though, but I know the first trilogy is 100%. For anticipated reads, obviously this is again dependent on you to some extent, but I do have 3 arcs coming out in February, so they are my most anticipated reads. The first one is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. This is the sequel to A Dowry of Blood, which I absolutely loved, which followed The Brides of Dracula. This one I think follows Carmilla, which is like another kind of classic vampire story. And I'm so excited that I got the arc for this. And I'm so excited to read this book. This is definitely the top of my list for anticipated reads. The Antique Hunter's Guide to Murder is another book that I, again, have a arc for. And this follows Freya. Freya is an antique dealer. Freya gets a phone call from her Aunt Carol that her estranged mentor Arthur has died. And Freya then gets a letter that Arthur posted before he died saying that she's in danger. She starts suspecting that Arthur has been murdered and she goes to meet up with Carol and they solve Arthur's murder. This sounds like a cozy murder mystery, which is always up my street. The next one is The Traitors. This book to me is screaming linked to the reality TV show The Traitors, which I absolutely adore. I do also like the spin-offs, but the UK version of the show is the best. And this thriller sounds so much like the TV show. 6 people get white envelopes inviting them to this place, this castle, to win $1 million. But the catch is this mansion was the site of some grisly murders in the past. And the tagline is 6 people walk into the house. 1 of them is an imposter. All of them are traitors. Which one will survive the night? Now for BIPOC and LGBTQI+ authors, I have picked a few books for this as well. And the first one is Other Words for Home. I read this during the Amazing Readathon. It was a host favorite. I believe it was Margaret's. And I'm so glad that I read this book. It's told in verse. It's fabulous. It follows Jude, who has recently immigrated with her mother from Syria. Her father is still in Syria. And we see her move to America and kind of transition into this American dream that they've been told so much about. And it's very hard-hitting. It's just so heartwarming. And there's so many aspects to this that are just so beautiful. And the writing being told in verse, fantastic. Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding is a contemporary romance that I do not talk as much about as I should because it was 5 stars. It was fabulous. It does not have a 3rd act breakup. Let's keep that in mind because we don't need a 3rd act breakup all the time. The conflict can come from elsewhere. Anyway, that's a whole other video that we don't need to discuss today. Devon and Chris both enter a reality TV show. They are paired up. They have to plan a wedding and they have to convince everyone in their family is that it is a real wedding. And if they do that, they will win $100,000 and they can choose to still get married or not on the day of the wedding. It is such a fabulous book. I had such a fun time with it and I really did love this kind of competition, but also this romance, and the families were so entertaining. I really did enjoy this book, gave it 5 stars, and I feel like not that many people know about it, so here's me telling you about it. Then we have Buy the Book by Jasmine Guillory. This is the 2nd book in the Meant to Be series, and it is my favorite in the series so far. Gave it 5 stars again. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it is a contemporary romance. Isabel is an editorial assistant at a publishing house, and they are waiting for this celebrity memoir. And the celebrity keeps not writing the memoir. They are sending emails constantly trying to get him to write the book. They've given him money to write the book, and he will not write the book. So Isabel is now tasked with figuring this out. She's writing emails. She's offering to help, getting no responses back. So she walks her behind to the airport, gets on a plane, flies to the man's door, and knocks on it. She convinces him to write his memoir, but he convinces her that she has to move in and help him. So she moves into his guest room and they start writing the book. And obviously it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's Grumpy Sunshine. It's fabulous. And the Easter eggs to the original story are just absolutely perfect in my opinion. Book that starts with C. Now this one, I did do books that actually started with C. I didn't do ones that had a or the. I think Rainey said we can use books that have a or the before the C, but I decided to go purist with this and just do books that actually start with the letter C. The first one is Campus Player. I read this from Stuff Your Kindle Day, and it is a really fun sports romance. It is a football romance between the coach's best player and his daughter. They've kind of known each other for a long time because the coach has taken him under his wing. So he comes to family dinners. He's around a lot and they've kind of always had feelings for each other and never really done anything about it. But in this book, they do. Check and Mate became my favorite Ali Hazelwood book this year. I absolutely adore this book. It is a fabulous YA book. I would actually say it's leaning more towards new adult than YA. I know it's marketed as a YA, but it's a bit more on the edge with the spicy content than I think any YA book I've ever read is. So there you go. And it follows Mallory and Noah. Mallory has not played chess in many, many years due to something that happened with her father. He was the one who taught her chess, and she kind of feels betrayed by him for various reasons and gave up the sport. Her best friend, however, asks her to come participate in a charity competition, and for charity, and because her friend has talked her into it, she goes. She ends up being placed against the best player that is currently playing chess in the professional realm, Noah the King Killer, and she beats him. This brings people to her door. It gets her a kind of job learning how to play chess, kind of mentoring in this chess world to play professional chess. Eventually, Noah and her get together. It's a really cute romance. I liked the chess. I loved Mallory, and her storyline was really interesting. And I love Noah too, and their relationship was really cute. And like I said, my favorite, Allie Hazelwood to date. Confessions on the 745 is a thriller that I read before I started BookTube, and it's still probably one of my favorite thrillers. It still lives in my head. The moment of the twist lives in my head rent-free, to the point that I could tell you what page it's on. I'm not going to because I don't want to spoil anything, but I could tell you the page number. I read this book at least 3 years ago. A lot of books, I can't even remember the name of the people in it, let alone what page something happens at. So that should tell you how much I loved this thriller. However, it is one of the first thrillers I ever read, so I don't know if now that I've read a lot of thrillers, that twist would live in my head rent-free as much as it does now, but it did at the time, and I freaking loved it. We have a missing nanny. We have 2 women that met on the train. There's a lot happening in this book, and I don't want to give anything away, but I really did love this book 3 years ago. I should reread it, but I feel like I don't want to ruin my first experience with it. So I hope you love it as much as I did the first time I read this book. And the last prompt is a book with step, girl, party, or together in the title. This you would think would be easy. Those are a lot of words, and I actually had a hard time coming up with books that I have already read. I had a lot on my TBR, but that I had already read and that I actually liked for this prompt. Why that was so hard, I don't know, but I did come up with 3. The first one is The Girl from the Sea. This is a graphic novel, and I absolutely love all of Molly Knox Ostertag's graphic novels. I've read all of them to this point, and this one is even more special because it is set off the coast of Nova Scotia, and I am from Nova Scotia, and they even talk about coming to Nova Scotia and coming to Halifax because they're on the coast, and it's so fun to see something set kind of close to where I live, and it's also a really lovely sapphic graphic novel, and I highly recommend. The art style is great. The story is great. It's heartwarming. I cannot say enough. I also love the Witch Boy series, which is another graphic novel series by this author, but this is the one that fits for this prompt. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I think everyone knows what this is about, but if you haven't read the entire trilogy, all 3 of the books would fit. So you've got multiple options depending on where you are in the trilogy, including me. I've read the first 2. I gave the first one 5 stars. The second one only 3, but I still have the third one to read, so maybe I will also take this recommendation and read the third book. We'll see. These books follow Casa Moby. She is a high school student, and for her school project, she is trying to solve the murder of Andy Bell. Andy Bell disappeared a few years prior to the events of this book, and her boyfriend has always been suspected of her murder. He committed suicide, and they kind of took that as a confession. And she does not believe this to be the case, and she is going to hunt it down as part of a school project. The second book follows this too as well. We continue into the second book into a podcast element, which we know I love a podcast. Unfortunately, like I said, the second book did not work for me as well as the first did. I'm going to continue with the third, and I do highly recommend the first at least because it was 5 stars. Now, this next recommendation, I actually haven't finished the book yet. I am 30 chapters in, and it's The Engagement Party by Darby Kane, and I'm loving it so far. The book club is divided. There's some of us who are really loving it, and some of us who are not as much and are just middle of the road with this book. For me, as of 30 pages, I'm having a fabulous time because I think I love a murder mystery. This is a secluded thriller murder mystery vibe. It's not necessarily a thriller in and of its own right. It's more of a whodunit, Agatha Christie style of book, similar to The Guest List, things like that. So if you like Ruth Ware, if you like Lucy Foley, I think you would like this a lot. So I think that's why it's kind of not hitting for everyone, because I also know Ruth Ware and Lucy Foley do not hit for everyone. They are both authors where you either really enjoy them or you do not. Because I think we constantly put murder mysteries into the thriller category, and they are very, very different. And I wish we would market books more correctly, but that is, again, another spiel. I'm enjoying this at 30 pages, so I'm hoping I'm not leading you astray with this recommendation as I finish it this week. But as of filming this, I'm 30 pages in and I'm having a fabulous time. But that is the end of my recommendations for Battle of the Girl Bands. What team are you joining for Battle of the Girl Bands? What band are you going to be rocking out with in February? Also, if you have recommendations for any of these prompts, please put them down below because I could use some recommendations for some of these prompts. Help a girl out. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.